I've been noticing the questions people ask about Celtic gods on social media, and I try to answer some of them in person, but there are some which come up a lot, so I thought I might try to tackle a few of them here on my YouTube channel. Last week, I tried to offer some answers for people who are worried about offending Celtic deities by saying or doing the wrong thing. If you need that video, the link should be on your screen about now. When we get into talking about humans relating to deities, we're talking about personal experience and personal opinion. What I'm going to say in this video is definitely my opinion based on my experience. I've been a Celtic polytheist for about 40 years, so I have years of experience and also years of hearing about other people's experiences. That still doesn't give me the right to say that what you're experiencing is right or wrong, true or untrue. If my experience and my viewpoint helps you, that's great. If it doesn't feel right for you, you should pay attention to that feeling. A lot of people have questions about being called by a deity, or they're not sure whether they're being called. Some people might feel like they're being called, but they can't identify what deity is calling them. I'll try to tackle some of those questions today. I want to start with what feels to me like a bit of common sense about all this. It seems like there's an expectation these days that you could just be living your life, going about your business, maybe only vaguely interested in paganism or something like that. And then you have some kind of major experience, a dream, a vision, an encounter with a bird, whatever. And so that's it, you're called. Now, I think this can happen, and it's not something anyone can produce statistics about, but it feels to me like it's become more common in the last few years. We could interpret that as the gods getting more active, or there could be other reasons. Why would the gods get more active? Well, maybe because the number of Celtic polytheists is slowly growing and more people are open to those deities. As more people take an interest in our gods, maybe the gods have begun to think it's worth taking more of an interest in those interested people. That's kind of a beautiful thought. And I wouldn't mind if it turned out to be true, but I'm not convinced that it's the whole story. There are some long-term trends in paganism that I notice because I'm old, which if you're under 30 won't be as clear to you. At one time, being a pagan was something more people did in groups that met face-to-face for rituals, sometimes even for study or at pagan festivals. Now, some people still do that, but like so many things, polytheism is becoming more driven by the internet. It's less social and it's more centered on the individual and their experience. The internet has its uses, but when you see someone in a video or meet them in a chat group, it's not as easy to know what they're really like, how trustworthy they are, and how well grounded they are. You can still meet some great people, but it's a different environment. And sometimes it's not an environment that grounds any of us in reality very well. Let's just imagine that you're part of a group that meets regularly for ritual. There are experienced people in the group. Maybe you've made friends with a couple of the members. You've been going to these rituals for a while. This should help ground you in reality. And one way it does is because people can talk about how the ritual felt afterward. You begin to notice that some people have stronger feelings in ritual than others. You'll notice that some rituals feel more powerful than others. Sometimes a ritual may feel pretty unspecial. You begin to understand where you fit into things. Are you someone who has powerful experiences or someone who's just content to take part? Now, I realize that not everyone has access to a group, and some people don't even want that, and that's okay. It's perfectly possible to navigate a relationship with the gods on your own. I've spent a lot of time doing that myself, but it makes it harder to look at your own experiences objectively. When you're by yourself, you become the center of your own attention. Combine that with the internet effect of trends and people competing for likes and shares, and I think it can be easy to end up with some unrealistic expectations. On social media, people are more likely to talk about dramatic or moving experiences. As I said in the last video, some of those experiences will be true and accurate, but some might be the result of confusion or an overactive imagination. And there are also some people around who exaggerate or just make things up. The result can be that we think interaction with a god or a goddess should always be exciting and dramatic. Coming up, I'll share what my own experiences taught me. If you'd like to delve a little deeper into the topics in my videos, you might enjoy taking one of my online classes. You can find out more about them at the link which is on your screen now. You can also support my work on Ko-fi or by becoming a patron. You'll also find free content to read on my Patreon page and on my website. All the links are in the description. Some people do get called by deities, but a lot of people don't, and especially not in a dramatic way. And you don't need to be called before you can be a Celtic polytheist. You can just start honoring one or more deities. It's that simple. You don't need an excuse to reach out to a deity. You don't need their permission. You don't need to be called. You can go light a candle, say a few prayers, maybe give an offering, meditate, whatever feels right for you. Maybe you'll find that they respond. Maybe they won't. And maybe it will be hard to be sure. And that's okay too. That's the nature of humans dealing with the gods. Sometimes it can be dramatic. More often it's not, and sometimes you don't feel anything. Actually, feelings aren't the central thing. Contact with deities is more a case of building reciprocal relationships, or even just building devotional relationships sometimes. Devotion is the human saying to the deity, I think you're so wonderful that I want to give you this offering. That offering might be material. It might be your praise or thanks in a song or poem. It might be your labor. We may want to offer this to a deity because we believe that they're already giving something to us, making the crops grow or inspiring our creativity or helping us achieve something. In other cases, we may set out to cultivate reciprocal relationships with deities because we think it will benefit us in some way. We want a particular kind of help that they are known for giving. Perhaps we reach out to one of the many deities that are associated with healing because we're ill, or a god associated with a particular activity that we're involved with, like music or farming. Sometimes we see or feel very clear signs that our offerings are welcome and that the deity is helping us, or sometimes we have strong feelings of a deity's presence, and sometimes we don't. As for being called, let's say a deity is calling you. For some reason, they've noticed you, singled you out. If they do that, they must have a reason. To be perfectly honest, they must want something. They probably didn't say, oh, look, there's Jennifer walking down the street. She looks like she needs me in her life. We can't always fathom the reasons why a deity calls an individual. Maybe you're already interested in them and they just want your devotion and offerings. Maybe you have a skill that they want to put to a particular use. Maybe they've seen that you keep your promises or that you're already doing something for another deity. To be honest, these are educated guesses, not a definitive list. But one thing I would say is that it's not a good idea to rush into a long-term commitment to a deity, to make a vow or something. There's a time and a place for that, but don't rush into it. Don't do it lightly. I'll talk about this more in the next video I do, which will be about patron deities. Finally, I admit that I find it a bit strange that someone would be called by a deity and not know who that deity is. Maybe I'm too judgmental, but in most cases, I suspect an overactive imagination at work. Why would a deity call someone who has no knowledge of them, no interest in them? And why would that deity not identify themselves? Judgmental or not, I think it may happen sometimes. Perhaps a deity is showing you one aspect of themselves to gauge your response. Are you curious enough to try to figure it out based on what they've shown you? But I still think it's very rare. Not every odd encounter with an animal or a dream about a lady in a green dress is a message.